Well, I'm lucky enough to live just across the road for some very beautiful woods, and it gives me a chance to have a walk sometimes. And you know, when you're having a walk, you also think about various things. Sometimes it's amateur radio, and I was walking recently, and I thought, well, you know, I don't know. Amateur radio is an amazing hobby. We can talk to people all over the world, people we've never spoken to before, people we don't know, people we may never speak to again. We don't know much about them, although with time we might know a bit more about them. But it's an amazing hobby, and we can do this from the comfort of our own home. We don't have to go out. We can sit there. It could be teeming down with the rain, cold outside. Maybe we're housebound, but we can still talk to people all over the world. That's a great thing about amateur radio. But you know, sometimes I hear, oh, it's not what it used to be. I haven't got the enthusiasm I used to have, which is a shame, really. So that set me about thinking about this particular problem, and that's what I'm going to do now, just talk about this problem. Very short video. I'm sure you've got some input on it. If you have, put your views below this video. Ham radio, where is it taking you? If you're a newcomer to ham radio, you're probably very excited about all the things that you can do, all the things you can look forward to, the equipment you can buy, the way that you can achieve this and that, the way you can make improvements. It's all very exciting stuff. But there comes a point in the hobby where you sometimes may think, well, where am I going with this hobby? I've done this and I've done that. And sometimes even those that have been enjoying the hobby for a long time can get a bit depressed because they really think that they've lost the excitement that the hobby gave them. And why is this happening? Well, I think it's human nature that you get very excited over something new, you love it, you think this is absolutely wonderful. And as time goes on, you perhaps don't spend so much time on it. And then there comes a time when you look at the gear and you think, I don't know whether I'm really enjoying this. Now, is it because you genuinely are not enjoying it? Or is it because you actually don't really know where you're going? And it's easy to get into that situation because if you look at some of the YouTube channels and you look at some of the magazines, not there's so many amateur radio magazines about now, but you see these radio shacks full of gear. You see these big tall towers with 3-element yaw gears, or 3/3, or more than that. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 metres high. And you think, really, I can't compete with that. And perhaps that's where you're going wrong. Perhaps you shouldn't look upon it as competition. You should look at it more as a form of experimentation, a form of challenge, trying to do something, not being disappointed if it doesn't work. Be prepared to be disappointed. Be prepared to turn in a different direction. You know, recently we've enjoyed some spectacular radio conditions, particularly on the higher frequency bands. 10 metres has been quite amazing. 6 metres has had its excitement, although I don't think it's had quite as much excitement as perhaps we hoped. But nevertheless, we've had some extraordinary conditions, being able to work all over the world on very modest power. And then all of a sudden, conditions have changed quite dramatically. I've been through many sunspot cycles, and I do recall that things can drop off quite dramatically. And it's when they drop off, particularly as they are at the moment, that perhaps you get a little bit despondent. You think, well, I'm running 100 watts, and I've got an antenna which is 20 or 30 feet in the air. And a few months ago, I was working in the States and getting 5 and 9. I was working all over the world. But now, that's all gone. Well, it may have gone, but it's gone for everybody as well. You're not the only person that's suffering that way. And you know, sometimes I go on the air and I think I enjoy the simplicity. I haven't got a station with lots of gear. I've got a transceiver, I've got a Morse key, I've got a wire reel down the garden. And I do recall thinking, oh, I'd love this and I'd love that. And I suppose in my particular situation, having been running a ham radio sort of outlet for many, many years, I could have had anything really. But I think what's kept me going is the fact that I do like the simplicity of working stations around the world as and when conditions permit. And I think that's really part and parcel of the secret, is don't get disappointed because you can't do this and you can't do that and you think others can. Well, perhaps others can because they've got a bigger antenna, they've got more power than you. But then that's going to happen anyway, isn't it? Why don't you perhaps sit back, have a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, or maybe something even stronger, and think, you know, this is a hobby and I've got to think of ways of enjoying myself. And I've had some great QSOs in recent times on CW with stations that I wouldn't have worked had I not been operating on CW. And I actually enjoy looking up those call signs afterwards on QRZ and finding out a bit of background, if there's some background to be read, and some of them have got some interesting background, and also to see what they're using. And you know, sometimes these stations are using very simple equipment. And sometimes you think, gosh, I didn't realise that person had done this or done that, or they're that old, in my case. So if you are getting a bit down with ham radio, particularly as conditions are, then take perhaps a sideways step and think, I'm going to go on the air and I'm going to have a couple of QSOs and I'm going to find out a bit about these stations I've worked, have a look at QRZ, read up about QRZ, read up their background, see what they're using, and very often you get a lot of enjoyment reading up about the station that you worked 5 minutes ago. And on QRZ, there's very often email addresses. Try firing off an email if you feel like it. I sent off an email to a station in Australia about 2 months ago it was. And I knew he was an XG, but that's all I knew. He said he was an XG. But he came back to me and he told me my life history. He said, oh, Peter, I remember you when you started the business. You used to work in insurance. You were an insurance fire surveyor. As it happens, this guy was an insurance surveyor, not in fire. He said, I remember you were a fire surveyor. I remember opening the shop. And I thought, gosh, he remembers all that. And he's now in Australia. And we're both in I think he's just coming up to his 80s, and I'm sort of 82 now. Interesting reading. So, I don't have an answer for those that are a bit disillusioned with the hobby, but perhaps what I've just said may give you the impetus, the energy to perhaps revitalise your attitude towards the hobby. Find out why you're a bit disappointed and think, well, can I approach it in a different way? Maybe you can't, but maybe you can. There we are. A short little video, a thoughtful little video, and hopefully it may rekindle your enjoyment in the hobby. Thanks for your support. Thank you for being with me in this video, and I look forward to seeing you, as usual, in the next video. Bye for now.